Hello and welcome to another video. My name is Lizzie and today we're going to be talking LGBTQ plus historical fiction. In the UK, February is LGBT History Month, so I thought it would be fun to share some of my favourite historical fiction that includes LGBTQ plus characters and storylines and themes, etc. I really tried to narrow this list down to 5, which is my usual number for recommendation videos, but we're at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 10. So we're going to whiz through them, not too slowly. We're going to, go at a bit of a pace. I will say all of these are going to be spoiler-free recommendations, but in the description I'm going to put basically if they have a happy ending or not, because sometimes you want escapism, you want queer joy, sometimes you want more historically accurate stories. So I will put in the description whether or not they have a happy ending with regards to the queer element of the story. So without further ado, let's get to the books. First of all, Things a Bright Girl Can Do by Sally Nichols, and this is set in the early 20th century during the end of the suffragette movement in the UK and the First World War. It follows 3 girls from their teen years into their sort of late teens, early 20s, very much a coming of age story, and 2 of those girls have a romance over the course of the book. This was a really, really wonderful coming of age story. All of my frustrations with the characters at the start were kind of worked through and dealt with, and it felt very, very true to what being a headstrong teenager with lots of opinions and beliefs is like, and what it is like trying to take those into adulthood and realising that the world is more complicated than you thought it was, but not losing that part of yourself that believes in what is right. It's a great YA novel, Edwardian setting, Sapphic romance, suffragettes. Need I say more? Next up, and I'm aware that I've talked about this book a lot, but it is so good, and that is Something Fabulous by Alexis Hall. It's Regency romance, but queer. Like, everyone is queer in this book. It's queer joy from start to finish. If you enjoy Regency romance, if you've watched Bridgerton and thought, Benedict, is there something you're not telling us? Then you should read Something Fabulous. I had so much fun. It's laugh out loud. It's glorious. Glorious, glorious book. I did do a full video review as well as my written review, which I will link in the description. Now for something completely different, The Dangerous Kingdom of Love by Neil Blackmore. This is set in the early Stuart era, so in the early days of the reign of James I/6, depending on which country you lived in, and it's written from the perspective of Francis Bacon. There has been a lot of, should we say, speculation about James I's personal life. I'll leave you to read the Wikipedia page on him and come to your own conclusions. But this book is basically Francis Bacon planting his own king's favourite into the court so that he can have more influence, but having feelings himself for the young man that he has put in the king's way in order to have an ear in the court, basically. This book is not what I expected. It is not for the faint-hearted. Unlike Something Fabulous, which is literally fabulous and exploring queer joy, this is much more about shame and living in an era where on one level you have so much power, but also the expense of that power is the hidden life that you have to lead. The real strength of this book is the unreliable narrator. I got to the end and everything had been turned on its head and I didn't really know what was going on. So if you like slightly darker books, then this is definitely one to have a look at. Now for some historical fantasy, Sister Song by Lucy Holland. I love this book so much. It was one of my favourite books that I read last year, and it is set in the sort of Dark Ages Britain, so just after the Romans have left Britain, and follows 3 siblings who are the children of the king. 2 of the siblings, the 2 daughters, are in constant competition, constantly butting heads, but the glue of the family is their sibling, the middle child, who, although is assigned female at birth, desperately wants to be recognised as the man that he knows that he is. The story is based on old British mythology, which I really, really loved and had such a sort of dark, twisted aspect to it. The inclusion of Merlin as a sort of version of Merlin, and also as a more gender fluid character, was such a great addition. The conflict of the different beliefs and religions and cultures going on in Britain at the time, this book was spectacular. It was so good. It was so good. I cannot recommend it highly enough. Next, Lies We Tell Ourselves by Robin Talley. This book follows two high school girls during the American Civil Rights Movement, one of whom is the first black girl to go to this formerly all-white high school. And at first, then, there are conflict and division, and as those become overcome, and it's very much a coming-of-age story, they start to have feelings for each other and have to deal with that with the background of everything else that is going on. It's probably the most recent setting of all the recommendations for the books on this list, but if anything, all the more reason to read it. Closer to today, closer to the lives that we lead today, and all the more relevant to our own lives. The next book is A Place Called Winter by Patrick Gale. The story follows Harry Kane, who is a young married man, and he moves from England to Canada in the early 20th century when his family and his wife find out that he is gay. This book was beautifully written, so intense in the feelings and the journey that you go on with Harry and the ups and downs of his life, the traumas that he goes through, the joys that he experiences, and in all of that, a wonderful sort of found family story at the very end. The last one on the main list is The Absolutist by John Boyne. This book broke me. It broke me. I read this on the train. That was a bad decision. I'm pretty sure I made some involuntary noises of distress. The Absolutist starts just after the First World War. A soldier is meeting with the sister of his friend who had died in the war, and over the course of their meeting, we see flashbacks to his friendship with his fellow soldier, and it's building up to a reveal. You think you know what the reveal is going to be. You do not know what the reveal is going to be. I read this a while ago and I'm still recovering. It was years ago and I'm still recovering. It was an emotional journey. As well as the relationship between the characters, then we're also exploring themes of what it is to be brave, the ethics of war, and this sort of coming of age story in the trenches of the First World War. Those are the main books I'm going to recommend. A few quick honourable mentions. So these are books that if you watch a lot of BookTube you have almost certainly heard of, but they all deserve to be on this list. So first of all, The Song of Achilles by Madeline Miller. Ancient Greece, wrecks me every time. One of the best books ever written. I love it so much. Also The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo by Taylor Jenkins Reid. This is one of those books, you just can't put it down. You pick it up, you can't put it down. And A Marvellous Light by Freya Marske. I feel like a lot of you have probably seen my review because it's one of my most watched videos that I love this book so much. So link in the description to my video review of that one. And then finally, as always, I've got a few books on my TBR that I thought I would share with you that fit with this overall theme. So first of all, The Testimony of Alice Twist by Susanna Dunn. This is a Tudor historical fiction off my very well stocked Tudor shelf, which I need to keep reading those. I believe it's set during Mary I's reign and is about the conflict between her and would-be Elizabeth I, and all of the drama that was going on there, but from the perspective of two servants, and so I think it's a Sapphic relationship at its core. Next, America Is Not the Heart by Elaine Castillo. This follows different generations of a Filipino family. I don't know a huge amount about the LGBT element, but it's tagged as LGBT on Goodreads, so I will take it. And lastly, Spirited by Julie Cohen. This is a Victorian fantasy, again with a Sapphic romance between the main character, who is a photographer, and a medium. So very interested to see where that one goes. Thank you very much for joining me today as we went through some LGBTQ plus historical fiction. Now, those are two of my favourite genres, LGBTQ plus and historical fiction. When they meet, I am very happy. So if you have any more recommendations for me in that field, then let me know. I'd love to hear them. And I hope you all have a wonderful day. If you are in the UK, happy LGBT History Month, and I will see you all next time. Bye!